I'm going to look straight into the camera and say this clearly. Love doesn't ask permission. It doesn't tiptoe around expectations. Sometimes it arrives loud, bold, and impossible to ignore. In a world where boundaries still exist, some love stories cross them anyway. When a white man and a black woman choose each other, the connection is often tested and made stronger because of it. Tonight we're sharing powerful stories of love, courage, and devotion that refuse to be defined by color. George Lucas imagined entire universes, galaxies filled with heroes, destiny, and hope. But the love story that shaped his real life didn't come from fantasy. It came quietly, grounded in reality, wisdom, and shared purpose. He met Mellody Hobson in 2006 at a conference far removed from Hollywood lights. Lucas was already a legend. Mellody was something equally powerful, though in a different world, a disciplined, thoughtful leader in finance, known for her clarity and vision. What drew him in wasn't glamour, it was her intelligence. Her calm. The way she spoke with confidence without needing to prove anything. The relationship unfolded slowly, with intention. Two people who understood responsibility, legacy, and the weight of choices. In 2013, they married at Skywalker Ranch in an intimate ceremony that reflected who they were: private, deliberate, and deeply aligned. Later that year, they welcomed their daughter, Everest, through surrogacy. Lucas described fatherhood in this chapter of life as one of his greatest joys. Together, they built a partnership anchored in respect, generosity, and shared values. Mellody has spoken of Lucas's kindness and humility. Lucas, in turn, has called her one of the most inspiring people he has ever known. Their story reminds us that love doesn't have to be loud to be profound. Sometimes it's steady, thoughtful, and deeply fulfilling, especially when two lives meet at the right moment, with purpose guiding the way. David Bowie spent his life transforming in front of the world. On stage, he became whoever the moment demanded, fearless, fluid, endlessly reinvented. But the most profound transformation of his life didn't happen under the spotlight. It happened the moment he met Iman. It was 1990. Bowie was already a global icon, a man who had lived 1,000 artistic lives. Iman, however, was something different. Her beauty was undeniable, but it wasn't what held him. She carried a quiet strength, an intelligence, and a calm presence that immediately shifted the energy in the room. Friends later recalled Bowie saying that meeting Iman brought him a sense of peace he didn't even realize he was missing. They married in 1992, choosing a private ceremony far from Hollywood's noise and expectations. For more than 2 decades, they built a life rooted in privacy, warmth, and deep mutual respect. Bowie spoke often about how much he admired her mind, her discipline, and the grace she brought into every space. Iman wasn't just his partner, she became the steady center of his world. Even after Bowie's passing in 2016, their love remains one of the most cherished interracial partnerships in entertainment. A reminder that true connection doesn't perform for the world it endures quietly, without asking permission from anyone. Long before Justin Chambers became a familiar face on television, he was simply a young man trying to find his way. New York City was his classroom, then crowded, uncertain, and full of ambition. It was there that he met Keisha, a woman working at a modeling agency, observant and grounded in an industry driven by appearance. Their connection didn't come from fame or opportunity. It came from timing, patience, and shared struggle. Two people building their lives quietly, learning who they were, and choosing each other before the world ever paid attention. They married in 1993, years before Hollywood knew Justin's name. Together, they went on to raise 5 children, an uncommon choice in an industry known for instability and constant reinvention. As Justin's career grew and the spotlight intensified, Keisha remained his anchor, the steady presence that kept their family rooted. Justin has often spoken about how Keisha protected their home from the noise of fame, reminding him of what mattered most: humility, consistency, and family. They chose a life intentionally low-key, avoiding spectacle and living outside the rhythm of celebrity culture. Their relationship challenges the idea that love must be loud to be meaningful. Sometimes, the strongest partnerships are built quietly through years of loyalty, shared sacrifice, and the simple act of choosing each other every day. When Halle Berry and Gabriel Aubry fell in love in 2005, their connection felt effortless. Two striking, creative people drawn together by warmth, humor, and a sense of ease that felt rare in Hollywood. For a time, they lived quietly, choosing privacy over spectacle, building a life that felt real rather than performative. In 2008, they welcomed their daughter, Nala, a moment both described as deeply transformative. Parenthood grounded them. It shifted priorities, and for a while, it seemed love had found its balance. But relationships lived under constant public attention face pressures most couples never experience. By 2010, Halle and Gabriel had separated, and what followed was a long, painful, and very public custody battle. Courtrooms replaced quiet moments. Headlines replaced tenderness. The world watched as something once intimate became intensely exposed. Yet through every disagreement and every legal fight, one commitment remained unwavering: their devotion to their daughter. Gabriel has spoken about fatherhood as the greatest responsibility of his life. Halle, even amid conflict, consistently emphasized the importance of protecting Nala's stability and emotional well-being. Their story isn't a fairy tale. It's complicated, imperfect, and deeply human. It reminds us that love doesn't always last in the form we expect, but responsibility, maturity, and shared purpose can still rise from heartbreak. Sometimes, choosing your child becomes the truest expression of love. Tamera Mowry grew up in front of America's eyes. From a child star to a woman who built her own voice, her own family, and her own sense of truth, much of her life unfolded in public. But when she met Adam Housley in 2005, their connection wasn't about headlines or image. It was about balance. Adam was a seasoned journalist, shaped by years reporting from conflict zones and crisis scenes around the world. He brought a steady seriousness that grounded Tamera's warmth and optimism. Their bond grew thoughtfully, rooted in conversation, trust, and shared values. When their relationship became public, the criticism followed quickly. Some questioned their political differences, others focused on race. Tamera, once celebrated by millions, suddenly found herself defending a love that didn't fit everyone's expectations. But instead of retreating, they stood firm. Tamera has spoken openly about how Adam protected her, listened when the noise grew loud, and never wavered in his support. Adam, in turn, consistently defended her with quiet conviction, reminding critics that character matters more than perception. They married in 2011 and welcomed 2 children, building a home defined not by public opinion, but by daily acts of partnership. Their relationship thrives on respect, honesty, and faith, a reminder that love doesn't need approval to endure, only commitment. Roger Ebert spent his life giving the world words that helped people understand movies, art, and the human experience. But the most powerful story he ever lived was the one he shared with Chaz Ebert. They met in the late 1980s. Chaz was an attorney, confident, articulate, and driven by purpose. Roger, already a celebrated film critic, was immediately drawn to her intelligence and warmth. Their connection wasn't built on glamour or public image. It was built on respect, curiosity, and emotional depth. They married in 1992 and created a partnership rooted in equality and shared vision. Chaz wasn't just a spouse in the background. She became a collaborator, a supporter, and a vital part of Roger's public and private life. Then came the greatest test. Cancer took away Roger's ability to speak. And in that silence, Chaz became his voice. She spoke for him at events, helped him publish books, maintained his blog, and ensured his thoughts continued to reach the world. Roger later wrote that her love sustained him through his darkest moments, calling her his strength, his partner, and his reason to keep going. Their love wasn't defined by race, profession, or circumstance, but by devotion. A rare, unshakable commitment to face hardship side by side. Their story remains a powerful reminder that love, at its deepest, is not about words spoken, but about showing up every single day. When writer and director Ole Parker met Thandiwe Newton in the late 1990s, neither was searching for spectacle. There was no headline-making romance, no rush toward the spotlight. What drew them together was admiration, steady, genuine admiration for each other's minds, values, and creative spirit. Ole was an emerging filmmaker, thoughtful and observant. Thandiwe was already recognized for her emotional depth and powerful presence on screen. Their connection wasn't built on fame, but on understanding. They saw each other clearly, beyond the roles and expectations the world placed on them. They married in 1998 and built a life that balanced creativity with family. Together they raised 3 children, creating a home shaped by honesty, humor, and emotional openness. Thandiwe has often spoken about how all saw her fully not as an image, but as a person, especially in an industry that can be unforgiving. All, in turn, never hid his respect for her strength, sensitivity, and fierce sense of justice. Like any long partnership, theirs faced pressure, amplified by public life and personal evolution. Yet what carried them forward for decades was alignment, a shared way of moving through the world. Their love story isn't loud or dramatic. It's intentional, it's mature, and it reminds us that sometimes the strongest love is found in the quiet, continuous choice to walk together, chapter after chapter. Robert De Niro built his career playing men of intensity, tough, guarded, and unafraid to stand in the fire. But one of the most defining relationships of his life unfolded quietly, away from movie sets and headlines. He met Grace Hightower in 1987 at a restaurant in London where she was working. There was no spotlight, no grand gesture, just a conversation that slowly grew into something meaningful. Grace carried a calm confidence and a grounded presence that balanced De Niro's private, introspective nature. They married in 1997 and welcomed their son a year later, creating a family that blended cultures, perspectives, and lived experiences. Their journey was not without challenges. Fame, public scrutiny, and the pressures of life took their toll, leading to a separation in 1999. But they chose reconciliation, remarried in 2004, and continued raising their children with intention and dignity. De Niro has spoken openly about how becoming the father of Black children changed him. It deepened his awareness of racial injustice and reshaped how he viewed the world, both personally and professionally. Although they eventually separated in 2018, their story remains one of commitment and growth. What endures is a shared legacy rooted in respect, cultural understanding, and the decision to put family first, even when love evolves. These stories remind us that love doesn't follow a script. It doesn't ask permission from history, headlines, or expectations. Across fame, pressure, difference, and time, each of these couples chose connection again and again. Interracial love isn't about proving anything to the world. It's about commitment, respect, and the courage to build something real, even when the outside noise is loud. If these stories moved you, take a moment to be part of the conversation. Like this video to help others discover these untold stories. Subscribe for more reflections on love, culture, and the lives behind the headlines. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from and which story stayed with you the most. Your voice keeps these conversations alive. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.